This is an interview with biofuels expert Ryan Lamberg, previous Vice President of Community Fuels and current consultant at BioSolar.
So under that umbrella of biofuels, you have a lot of different biofuels. Biodiesel is one of those. And biodiesel itself, the word biodiesel is very specific, and it's a bit of a misnomer because you think diesel is in biodiesel. But there is no diesel in biodiesel. Biodiesel is its own thing, and it actually has very specific parameters defined by what's called ASTM, or American Standard Testing and Measurements. And they have a very strict definition of what biodiesel is, just like they do with diesel. So diesel is a ASTM specification called 975. Biodiesel is ASTM 6751. Different parameters, but very specific. Vegetable oil, on the other hand, is not an ASTM specified fuel, so it's got its limitations that way. And each of these fuels have their benefits and their downsides, and so it's pretty, when you think about this in a very generic sense, you have to kind of say there's a lot of different tools in the toolbox, and there's a lot of different niche uses of those tools. So biodiesel is a great tool for a specific use. In the U.S., it's less than 1% of regular vehicles. We should see more because diesel engines are generally 40% more efficient than a gas car. So why do we even have so many gas cars? It's difficult to know exactly why we went down that path. But you can go back to Henry Ford and his belief that he built a Model T made all out of corn-based material. Like the car itself was made from corn, and it was run with corn-based ethanol. And this was before petroleum was even really well known. And then when the petroleum powers that be, Rockefeller and others, kind of made their fortune, dominated and wanted to use this new petroleum in all the substances. But even the diesel engine, when it was first introduced by Adolf Diesel in the 1880s, he presented it and it ran on peanut oil, and said that you can run this on vegetable oils, and that's what it was designed for. So we're now in the age of returning to what we'd already developed way back when. I can't emphasize enough that you have to think kind of three-dimensionally or four-dimensionally in terms of you have a lot of different needs in the world. I mean, just think about where we are right now. We've got electric needs for the lights, for the computer. We've got, looking outside, there's smaller car vehicle needs to move us around. There's larger vehicle needs, like buses that might work in India for CNG won't work in San Francisco because of the power issue to get up hills. Diesel power, we've got larger generators that power manufacturing facilities. So we have to kind of pick the cleanest and what we currently have available to us, cleanest fuel sources that are best used for each of those needs. So I wouldn't put a biodiesel into a generator that supplies electricity, because kind of the concept of permaculture, for example, you're losing energy value at each one of these. So you want to use your best energy source for the thing that's closest. So solar makes a lot of sense for places that are hot. In Arizona, it's already distributed power. You can rely on the sun. You can rely on your own needs. So you've got the producer, the end user, and your production facility on top of your house. Biodiesel, it's a more complicated food chain. You've got producers in the Midwest of the oils. You've got production facilities in California. You've got end users by the coast. So how do you move all that? Each one has different infrastructure needs. CNG, propane. You're talking about different infrastructures, hydrogen. If we wanted to be in a hydrogen society, we have all new vehicles. We have 450 million cars on the road today. Are we willing to throw all of those away and get a whole new infrastructure? I mean, think about all the steel and cost to replace that. So what can we do now with the lowest cost to the environment? Diesel vehicles average 25, 30 years. You've got people using tractors for 30 years versus a gas car, which, as you probably know with your own, you turn over 5, 7, 10 years. I think electric makes the best sense. Clean electric, the perfect is a solar panel that juices up your electric car. You're the producer, you've got it, and that makes sense, and smaller cars for vehicles. Anything that's a diesel vehicle in the city of San Francisco is using 20% biodiesel. That started with the fire engines and ended with street sweepers. And SF Muni, the public MTA, the transit, is the largest consumer of those different fleets of this B20, and they consume about 1 million gallons per year. And most diesel use, especially in California, is really off-road, construction, agriculture, and that's really where the biggest bang for your buck is where exposure to human beings is constant, like around construction sites, or people in the ag community that are breathing these fumes all day long and can have something that is actually completely non-toxic to breathe versus something that is extremely toxic and kills an estimated 50,000 people in California, or related deaths to diesel. Obama and his folks looking at alternative fuels will do what I think would be the smartest approach, and that is a biodiesel blend, a low-level blend that gets rid of this whole patchwork. Each state is now doing different things for biodiesel. And if they said, let's do a biodiesel mandate for the U.S. at 2%, which seems like almost nothing because it's 98% diesel still, but 2% would create a demand, a steady flow through current producers, because currently all the producers combined could produce just about 2%. So if they created that mandate for 2012 or 2013, all the producers currently would maximize what they're doing. They wouldn't be it wouldn't be a food versus fuel issue because it's not that much, but it would provide long-term incentive for things like algae farms and really kind of second-generation biofuels. So it's got a huge potential, but we need federal leadership that says, let's do this, but start slowly, and if it works over time, turn up the volume. If you're breathing in a 2% biodiesel, it's not necessarily a direct benefit, but if you think about all of a sudden, every city, every state is now focused on developing this infrastructure of train lines, of tank farms, of creating their own fuel for their own needs instead of bringing it in from Iraq and from Venezuela and from other countries. It's the beginning. So, and collectively, you might not use 2% everywhere as this federal mandate. Maybe it's 2% by volume, so that in some circumstances, construction sites of new schools or school buses, you're using B100. And in other places, you're not using anything because it's too difficult to move the fuel to those resources. So in certain cases, the benefits can be great. And I think we need baby steps to get to somewhere. So is the impact 2% that great? Maybe not, but it is absolutely what we need to do to start, because we can go turn up the volume and say, this worked. Let's go to 5%. Let's go to 10%.